All right, forecast. Yes. So the market is already live. It is already opened. What do I think about the dollar? Well, let me tell you. Here on the monthly, we still have that monthly value, of course. Something we need to take into account because here on the weekly, from what I'm currently seeing is, I think it's quite suspicious, this current price action. And the reason why is because the first candle right there is what we expect, right? We are respecting that fair value gap. We are respecting the order block as well. The second candle did not continue lower. It's a doji, so it's not a bullish candle, it's not a bearish candle. It's just in the middle right there. Just overall consolidation, what we saw. So that leads me to think as well that we now have an extra bullish argument sitting right there because we did not close in that potential fair value gap being created, which currently that leads to, of course, this weekly fair value gap sitting right there. So currently for me, just to sum it up as well, what I want to do is I simply want to wait to see what the dollar wants to do with this fair value gap. If it already wants to continue higher, I'm going to do that as well through 4-hour fair value gaps, where we can clearly see currently seek and destroy conditions. So I'm not interested in anything related to the dollar currently. I simply want to wait until we have something clear again. Then, if we look at ES and overall the indices, I still have the same exact bias as well. I just want to see higher prices right here, targeting the drawn liquidity right there. That's mainly what I'm looking at. After we reach that drawn liquidity, I want to take a small step back as well to see what we are doing at that moment in time. Where if I am trading the indices, I would prefer, again, same story as last week, prefer NASDAQ and ES over YM, because YM is just a little bit in the middle of nowhere. No daily flag up higher, just not super clean right there. For NASDAQ and ES, I am not expecting those daily flag gaps to be touched right there, to be traded back into. I would already want to see 1 hour flag gaps potentially higher to continue higher off of that. And then on DAX, currently the same thing, where next target could be that swing high that we have right there. It's also, if I'm not mistaken, the previous week high right there. Nice target, potentially on the 1 hour target right there. Could be quite nice actually. Australian dollar, US dollar. So all the forex pairs right here, we can actually go over them quite fast. And the reason being is because the dollar is consolidating, dollar is not clear right here. What we mentioned on Australian dollar, US dollar was this 4-hour value gap last week sitting right there, which at this moment in time, we are not respecting, as in we are not creating a new 4-hour value gap higher off of that. So right here, we also have a weekly value gap lower right there, where I quite like this formation right there, where we have a fake bottom sitting right there to do something like this. I do quite like this formation. If we first of all do something like this, then this could also be interesting right there. But overall, at this moment in time, still waiting. Then on EU, it is exactly the same, also still waiting, do not want to do anything right here. Because clearly, it's in the same exact position as last week, where nothing really changed. So I also don't want to do anything extra or don't want to force an ID still want to wait for the dollar mainly. GU right here is still in the same exact position as well, where we do not have a daily value higher or anything. So I still just currently, I don't like the overall situation here on these forex pairs. And it's the same for New Zealand dollar, US dollar, where I also don't like it. USD Canadian dollar, also don't like it right here, where we had bearish price action. Now we have potentially bullish price action. With the dollar unclear, it's overall just very unclear on what these pairs want to do. US dollar CHF, also don't like it, just still very unclear. US dollar JPY as well, still very unclear. And yes, of course, we can force an ID and we can try to force an ID, but I want to trade in the highest probability conditions. And currently it's just not high probability for these pairs right there. So when the dollar clears up again and we get volatility into the dollar, then we can get a clear sign on what it actually wants to do. So on silver right here, on silver, we are also seeing that we did have that ST right there after the sweep of that low. Then right now, if we do want to continue higher, we can look to continue higher as well. Although this is a pretty odd situation, right? Because we have to make quite a big retracement right there to then continue higher off of that. And with the dollar, again, same story, with the dollar being unclear as well. What does it potentially want to do? It's just really, really not clear at this moment in time. And I think I've mentioned it enough right now. So here we are also sweeping that swing high on the daily time frames. Also something to take into account. Here I also want more signs. Same for gold, where I also want more signs. And gold is a little bit more bullish than silver, like we discussed overall last week as well, where it just has more strength to it. So right here, this could definitely potentially target this swing high, but this is now an idea of the daily and of the 4 hour alone. So is that super high probability? Well, not really in my opinion, unless you were trading a flow trading pattern, of course, would change a little bit. But that 4 hour value gap could potentially be interesting. Again, the only thing that I am more so concerned about is that it's more so about forcing an ID right here than it is super clear. As in, it's not super clear, it's more so about forcing an ID right here, which I just simply don't like. Bitcoin, let's see. Bitcoin I do quite like because we are sweeping those highs like we mentioned in the previous forecast. And right there, we have this daily value gap right there lower. So we can target this weekly value gap actually below that. So this could be a quite interesting move right there. Could be quite nice. Crude oil, still in this consolidation. So very simply said, I do not want to do anything until we have a daily value gap higher or a daily value gap lower to get a clear indication again of what it wants to do. Nifty continuing higher, again new all-time highs. So I'm going to repeat the same thing where I'm not trying to chase price. I'm also not trying to call a top right there. So I do not want to do anything here for Nifty. Simply want to wait. Then if we go to the crosses, you can currently see that I have something on the list because I still want to make a breakdown of the previous week as well. And that is why I'm keeping them on the list currently. But we can also go over them, go over the crosses right here. Start off of the monthly again, still that monthly value gap right there, which is definitely quite interesting. And if we can potentially even look to trade towards it right there, that could also be quite interesting. Oof. After seeing that price action, I'm immediately drawn away and I do not want to do anything right there. All right, on Australian dollar CHF, wow, that's also very ugly price action. You can probably scan it with a barcode scanner. So I do not want to do anything right here. If we can get, again, that bullish price action, as in just fair value gaps higher, that could be quite interesting here because I do really like the overall theory that we have. Weekly swing low, getting swept right there, to then target that weekly value gap potentially. That could be very interesting overall, could be very interesting. Australian dollar JPY, let's see. We have reached that swing high on the weekly. On the daily, we are potentially sweeping it. Let's see if we do want to create a daily value gap lower. If we create a daily value gap lower, that could also be quite interesting. So I'm going over these pairs, Australian dollar CHF, Australian dollar JPY tomorrow as well. And I'm going to add them to the waiting list because that is quite interesting if we do get the right signs. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, let's see. I do not like the daily at all. Just by quick, I do not like the monthly at all. On the weekly, well, I do not like this at all. And it's taking too much time to create for value gaps even right there. So this is clearly still trying to recover from overall the holiday season. When we get back into this price action and we have new value gaps to work with, then we can look at it again. But currently, I do not want to do anything at all here. Canadian dollar CHF, and this is what we see a lot, right? If this is your first time actually coming out of a holiday season, and this is your first holiday season that you experience in trading as well, then this is very characteristic of what you will see. Where the market currently is just starting up, right? It's preparing for a whole new year as well. So keep that in mind. As in, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Who can make the most profits in the first week of the year? No. Can you make the most profits? Well, not necessarily the most profits. Again, you're competing against yourself, not against anyone else. But can you make the most profits for yourself throughout the year? And the year is very long. So take your time. Do not rush into the market just because you feel like, all right, we are in a new year and now I need to do my best as well. No, it's absolutely not necessary. So also skipping Canadian dollar CHF because we can see that, again, With the holiday season ending, the volatility just dies down in the holiday season. So everyone is slowly getting back as well, and then slowly the volatility picks up again. And then throughout the rest of the year, the volatility will pick up again as well. It's very important to understand. You can see the same thing happened last year right there. Volatility dies down, and then eventually, here it took quite long actually, February even, and eventually the volatility comes back into the market. So, Canadian dollar JPY. Let's see. Sweeping those lows, I believe there was something on a monthly, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yes, a monthly fair value gap right there, which we can look to continue higher off of. No weekly fair value gaps, and it's not too crazy, of course, because it was the holiday season, but it is, I would love a weekly fair value gap. Here, I would want to wait, and currently in this week, if we can get a daily fair value gap higher, that's ideal for me. If we can get that, that would be very interesting to eventually still target these highs sitting right there. It's looking quite nice actually. I am going to add it to the waiting list. CHF JPY, let's see. On the monthly, we are not necessarily doing anything. We are potentially even sweeping the swing high right there. On the weekly, what are we doing? No weekly for value gap higher, which is definitely something to take into account. Daily as well. Well, this could definitely be a sweep potentially, where we have a last push higher off the daily value gap right there, and disrespecting this daily value gap to create a daily value gap lower as well. Could potentially be a sweep. I am going to add it to the waiting list as well. Could be interesting overall. Euro Australian dollar, let's see. Monthly, swing low sitting right there, which we are sweeping potentially. Weekly, no weekly for value gaps in sight. Closest one being this one, which of course we can look to target right now. On the daily, no daily value gaps. Last daily value gap right there, which did not create a new daily value gap, even though we did continue higher. So here I would also want to wait, but there is potential. If we can get a daily value gap higher before we reach the weekly value gap, that could be quite interesting overall. Euro Canadian dollar. Did I say Euro Canadian dollar for the previous one as well? Not too sure. Might have said Euro Canadian dollar twice. Anyway, on the monthly, what are we seeing? Still in the same situation where it came into the month for value gap right there, which we can look to continue higher off of overall. Never created a new month for value gap though. Created a weekly ST lower. Never created a new weekly for value gap lower off of that as well. So that leads me to think that overall this is pretty seek and destroy-like as well, where it's not creating new bearish value gaps, and on the daily we can see that very clearly. Where overall this price action is just not something I would want to get involved in, so I don't want to do anything here. Euro CHF, let's see. Yes, this one is quite interesting, and the reason being is because on the monthly we are creating potentially a monthly value gap lower. But on the weekly, we have this weekly value gap, and we came into that quite late during last week. So there was no volatility left over to actually make that push lower right there, which I definitely think we can make that push lower right there. That is looking very interesting. I really like how this bottom right there formed as well. So that is definitely quite interesting. Now, since we came into that weekly fair value gap quite late during the week, during that candle formation, we can as well sweep this previous week high to then continue lower off of that. So what do you do in this situation? Well, you simply wait for either fair value gaps lower already, or we sweep this and then we get fair value gaps, or we just simply continue higher and there's no trade ID at all. So this is definitely interesting, and I'm definitely going to add this to the waiting list as well. Very interesting. I like it. Euro GBP. So this is where on the weekly the main interest happens, because on the weekly, even though this could be considered as a weekly breakaway gap sitting right there, we still have to pay attention right here if we do not want to trade back into it, because we do not have a daily fair value gap sitting right there. So since we do not have a daily fair value gap as well, 4 hour struggling as well to continue lower, we could definitely realistically make that move to continue lower. Again, technically, mechanically, it is a breakaway gap, yes, but we still have to read the fair value gaps on the lower time frame below the weekly to see if it actually already wants to continue lower. And in my eyes, this definitely has the potential to trade into this breakaway gap to then continue lower already. So that is also quite interesting. Euro JPY, let's see. Euro JPY on the monthly, not too clean. Weekly, not too clean. Daily, let's see. Oh, this is the 4 hour. Daily, let's see. Daily is quite interesting. It's not too bad actually, having this fair value gap sitting right there as well. Having the order block that we came into right there. If we can get fair value gaps higher, this could definitely be quite interesting right here. Only thing, of course, that we have as resistance is this weekly fair value gap. Definitely something we have to take into account overall. But other than that, could be interesting. Going to add it to the waiting list. Euro New Zealand dollar, let's see. Can already tell on the weekly an interesting thing, where on the weekly we did not follow through with a new weekly fair value gap lower, so this high sitting right there could now become the target. That's quite interesting. If we do have daily fair value gaps or 4 hour fair value gaps supporting that ID to continue higher, that could as well be quite interesting. I'm also going to add this to the waiting list. GBP Australian dollar. Let's see. Monthly, not really clean. Weekly, creating a nice weekly ST actually, which could be quite interesting. We mentioned this order block in the last week actually, that we could continue lower off of that, which we clearly did not do. We had the first respect sitting right there, and then the next candle should of course ideally only sweep this previous week high to then continue lower off of that, or already continue lower, which we can see it clearly closes above it right there. So that indicates to me that overall we want to continue higher right now. This is currently a breakaway gap as well. Again, let's see on the daily, if we do already have a daily fair value gap higher, then we can continue higher off that already, which simply said we do not have. Let's see if this is a glitch, and if there is a daily fair value gap, let's see. No, okay, perfect. There is no daily fair value gap higher right there. So that then again pulls me away a little bit, where I still want to wait for a clear fair value gap higher already right there to then follow through on that. Could be interesting, but I would put it on the waiting list as well. GBP Canadian dollar, let's see. On the weekly, sweeping that swing low, and here on the weekly we also have this breakaway gap sitting right there. Next target could again be these highs, so that could be quite interesting on the daily time frame. Same situation as GBP Australian dollar. Again, if we already get a fair value gap higher, that could be quite interesting. And I do not want to force the fair value gap too much on the 4 hour, etc. If we get a daily fair value gap higher right there, that could already be quite interesting to continue higher off of. In the meantime, I simply also want to wait right now. GBP JPY, let's see. We ran into a weekly fair value gap right there. And this weekly fair value gap came into, or the last candle came into that weekly fair value gap quite late. So we can potentially look to target that previous week high. We also came into it quite far right there. So I would argue that we can potentially still look for this last high to be swept. If we then want to continue lower, we can continue lower. But after that, the run towards this high is also very interesting, because that is very low resistance. That's basically no resistance after that weekly value gap. So here, this is pretty 50-50, this area for me. But if we can get a daily value gap higher or daily value gap lower, that could as well be quite interesting. Again, one of those pairs that is going to end up on a waiting list. GBP New Zealand dollar. Let's see, weekly ST right there. Are we coming off something on a monthly? No, not necessarily. Weekly fair value gaps higher as well on the daily time frame. Again, no daily fair value gaps. I do not like that. So it's again going to be a situation where I would just simply want to wait for daily fair value gaps. So here again, simply waiting for daily fair value gaps right there. New Zealand dollar CHF. Let's see. Daily never follow through with a new daily fair value gap, which is interesting. Monthly, very ugly. Weekly, let's see. We have a weekly fair value gap sitting right there, which is quite interesting actually, because that can be used as a target, of course, as well. On the 4 hour, yeah, it's again one of those waiting list pairs where I probably never seen this much pairs where I simply have to wait currently. So here also simply waiting for fair value gaps to tell us actually what we want to do. And again, we can see that the lack of volatility also in that holiday season it's just, well, the lack of volatility also leads to a lack of fair value gaps, of course. So it's very important to understand. New Zealand dollar JPY here, which is in a similar situation as GBP JPY. On the weekly, we already overtook this weekly fair value gap though. So that is quite interesting because the next target is in form of these highs. So if you can look to follow through right now on this daily fair value gap, even 4-hour fair value gaps after the daily fair value gap, that could be quite interesting. Again, I would want to wait currently. So currently it's a lot of waiting right here, and patience will pay, believe me, because especially in the beginning of the year, and well, in general, of course, you don't want to blow an account. And this is one of those weeks, or the last week actually, is especially one of those weeks where you can very simply lose control and blow an account. And in blowing an account, it's very important as well to understand, just be patient. Of course, easier said than done, but if you're patient, that is already half the work done. So for the dollar, if I was to be interested in anything, it would, filtering process wise, I would argue, I do not think I'm super interested in any pair currently. Again, in the development of the week, potentially, yes, I might be interested in something. But if I was a flow trader currently, I would argue that, of course, the indices here, with that clear drawn liquidity right there, that is definitely something where I would look, all right, can I capitalize on that? So ES, NASDAQ, that can definitely be very interesting. And I might even switch over a little bit right there to look at ES and NASDAQ to see if we can reach that drawn liquidity right there and take a piece of the pie right there. That could be quite interesting. So that is mainly at the beginning of the week what my focus would be on as well. All right, perfect. Thank you.